All right, hello, welcome everybody to the RattyData tournament. We are about to get ready for what everybody in this lobby has essentially been working all month for. All of these players, like I was saying, over the last month have been playing in specific ranked sessions at ranked time slots in like a sit-and-go fashion, with those ranked games, of course, then turning into points that then go into this RattyData tournament. Your top 8 players in points from the month of July are all here ready to rock. So I'm looking forward to this one. Of course, they're also going to be firing off for a bunch of prizes in just a couple of moments, of course. Of course, every week as well, there's a separate little ladder attached to those time slots where you do have your chance at some fuel prizes as well, provided by Illuvium. So thank you, Illuvium, for helping RattyData, or Bart.Atlas Ratty, put this all together. And I'm happy to be able to have the opportunity to commentate it once again. We did it last month during the opener there in July, or not in July, in June. And it was a heck of a lot of fun. We did see Bart from Atlas take it in that one. But we'll see if we have a couple of new contenders that can maybe knock them off the top of the mountain, or will they all of a sudden get yet another victory here today? We'll have to see. But first and foremost, let's introduce the players that we do have in today's event. We do have Wolverine. This is based off of the last month of points, but this isn't necessarily going to show who we're getting here today. But over the last month of July here, we did have Wolverine lead the charge alongside Draknyen, Bart from Atlas, Texan, Hector from Mad Dogs, and Droa, Zyfet, and Nocacho. However, a few players unfortunately were not able to make the final match here today. So that's why it's a perfect case scenario that you keep pushing anyway. If you're in that 9th, 10th, or 11th spot, if somebody no-shows, that's where you can get in. And that's why we're going to have a competitive regular of sorts. Whenever there's a big tournament around, you'll see Nariba coming around, and we could potentially be seeing some other players coming on through. I think Monster would be the next one if someone does not actually end up making it through. We're just in the process of getting our final player in here. We just need Androa left last time I checked. And then we'll be getting started with our first game in our best of 3. So basically how we're going to end up doing this, it'll be a strictly points-based format. Of course, winner gets 8 points. Whoever ends up with 8th gets 1 point, and everybody else is 1 point down in between. We're going to take all those points in a 3-game format. Whoever happens to have the most points after 3 matches will end up being the winner here today in the RattyData tournament. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. This patch as a whole as well has made it extremely interesting, because I'd argue there isn't necessarily a gigantic standout. Like, one can argue right now still that water is probably very, very strong. And if you look at Bart.Atlas Ratty's website themselves, and we see the amount of blue currently in the Gauntlet Companion, and we see leading the charge is the classic Steam Harbinger, but I would take that with a bit of a grain of salt here, because Steam Harbinger is just another one of those fallback teams that or a comfort team. When players don't necessarily know what is super good in the meta right now, they always try Steam Harbinger. And with Water being pretty decent overall, it seems like they might be leading the charge. Like I was saying before in a past stream, we see Verdant Aegis maybe coming in to try and combat that Steam Harbinger, of course, with nature being super effective or hyper against water. And then the counter to that, of course, would be fire. And then we still see Inferno Arcanite coming on through. We have a bit of a type triangle in the meta as it stands right now, but there are some spin-offs here as well. Rogues, over the last little bit. I mean, Rogues, especially the Verdant Vanguard, it's another one of those comfort picks. And now that Inferno Arcanite got turned down just ever so slightly, well, we have Rogues on the way back up. And then there is the potential of Scions. In fact, we do see Invoker up here a couple of times around the A squad. So while it may not necessarily be the best option, it is at least an option, which is good to see. In our lobby right now, we of course got Zyfet, we've got Nocacho, we've got Draknyen, we have Wolverine 777 Hype, we've got Hector from Mad Dogs, we have Nariba, we have returning winner from last month, Bart from Atlas, and then we're just waiting to see if we get Androa, because they would be next. But if they do not end up showing up, then unfortunately we'll have to move on and pick the next in line, which would then go to Monster, if I recall correctly. So that is just kind of where we're at right now, just kind of stuck, waiting to figure out what goes on there. But that's all right. Now, of course, while this is an esports style event, and I'm going to be commentating the action as it's going live, the one thing that I do like to keep doing, even though it is esportsy in nature, I still like having the chat involved here. So all of you beautiful people in the bottom left corner here, I hope you're having a fantastic day as always. And by all means, I'd love to know who you're cheering for, who you're placing your bets on, theoretically speaking, in today's action. So big shout outs, of course, to Tallulah, Wolverine, Red Fox Amaranthi, Afterward Gaming, and everybody else hanging out in the chat right now. Good to see everybody. Yeah, it looks like we're actually reaching into some of the backup players now here. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get Androa, which is a little bit disappointing for me. I don't get to see Androa compete very often in some sort of competitive setting. So unfortunately, it might still end up being the case here today. Currently looks like we're reaching out to Monster and then potentially reaching out to Thanatos. That would be the next one in line if I do recall correctly. Can take a look at those stats one more time here. Let's see. Yeah, Naripa's in lobby. That's all set, all good to go. So we're looking for Monster. We're looking for Beloda. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce that one. I have not actually seen them in lobby yet, so interested to see. Then Dr. Spoon and Thanatos, but I think Dr. Spoon said they're not home, so it wouldn't end up working. It does look like we need to also do a remake as well. The lobby just went. Alright, so we can try that again here. Bear with me. A little bit of TOing on the side here at the same time here. Of course, Bone Daddy Ratty's got the majority of it, but I has the lobby maker, so kind of stuck pause for just a little bit. Robert Tacho, good to see you. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And of course, with this being Ratty's event, I didn't want to have my my own generated music plastered on top of it. So I went to an old one that it was from some old music from when I was just a kid. This is so old that you needed DOS on your computer to actually play this game. Which, of course, is absolutely ancient. I bet there are a lot of people out there that have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, from a very old good video game called One Must Fall. It was basically a fighting game, but instead of it being character versus character in the traditional sense, it was like battle mech versus battle mech. Alright, we're getting moving out here. People are coming into the remade lobby. Yeah, I'm very curious as to what we're going to actually end up seeing here today in terms of what people are going to play. So I'd argue that nobody's truly got this meta figured out just yet, per se. Like I talked about it a little bit earlier, how I think water is strong, but even when we went into House League yesterday, for example, I've not seen a lobby full of green weapons like we saw in the Monarch Masters from last night, where 3 or 4 players were all chasing rogues with the Verdant Cleaver, or the Divine-Bound Cleaver, and then everybody else was at the Elderwood staff with the Nature Empath weapon. So maybe everybody is prepping themselves expecting that they're going to see water, and with that they have all this nature ready to go. But I would love to see somebody throw an absolute wrench into the swing of things and absolutely create a monster. Now I'm seeing players. Oh, okay, hang on. Alright, so this... I've only done this once before. I'm gonna hit the rug button. Alright, let's see if this game closes here. I found it funny, of course, the program, in order to actually close out or shut the lobby down, you have to hit the rug game button. So that's what I didn't do before, so my mistake there. Hector, good to see you. Good luck in your games here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Hill to the old lobby. There we go. Yeah, so apparently some people were trying to put in the new code for the new lobby, and then it would take them back to the old game. So that's why I'm trying to figure that out right here, right now. Not an issue we've had in the past, but we're kind of rolling with it. We're rolling with it live. I thank everybody for hanging in here with me live, of course. It does look like a couple of our players for backups are starting to show up here as well. So we'll get this lobby up and running in just a moment's time. Yeah, this is absolutely unfortunate. So what I'm going to probably need to do while I deal with this is the briefest of be right backs. So I do apologize for the wait. Hang tight. I'm just going to quickly try to get this dealt with, and we'll be back live with hopefully game number 1 in just a couple of moments. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around here with us. We finally are getting things going here with game number 1. A little bit of technical issues off the start here, trying to get some lobbies going, but now we are up and running. We've got all 8 players in lobby, good to go. And yes, to confirm here to Lula, this is going to be a best of 3 here today. Just gonna try to do back-to-back, or very short or minimal break in between each game. Kind of treat this a little bit like House League, so to speak. Just go one after the other, nice and quick. But of course, with all of the points from every single round adding up to the eventual winner. After every single game, we will jump into the RattyData website and see exactly what the standings are. I mean, game number 1, we're going to know exactly what's going on, but after game 2, we're going to want to actually know what the actual standings is. All right. Just loading in just a moment. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the swing of things, why don't we? There we go. Game number 1 of the Bart.Atlas monthly tournament finale is happening right here, right now. Like I was saying a little bit before in the intro, before the tech issues, these players have been grinding it out in sit-and-go sessions throughout all of July, and now your top 8 players and then some are all here today. Couple players in that top 8 lobby weren't able to make it, and that's why, like I was saying before, push for 9th, push for 10th, try to get one of those spots, because you can absolutely still make it in, and it does happen to a couple of our players here today. For our players in this lobby, we have Wolverine 777 Hype, we have Hector from Mad Dogs, we have No Ketcho, we have Draknyen, we have Nariba, we have returning winner from last month, Bart.Atlas, we have Zyphet, and we have Thanatos coming on in here today. We're nice and hot after a Monarch Masters House League win just yesterday. Let's see if maybe they've got the lockdown onto what could potentially be a solid team here today. Starting off with our very first match, we're going to have Drak and Wolverine go at it. This is one of the few times where we actually get some of the tier 0s into at least some early tier 0 action. So it's a Where is Texan? They were unfortunately not able to make it here today. So we did have, I believe it was Thanatos. Oh no, it was Nariba had the opportunity to jump up in here, and then Androa couldn't make it as well. So Thanatos got the call up here as well. I believe 9th and 10th, or 10th and 11th, or something along those lines, respectively. So they were absolutely up there. All right, good start here for Draknyen. They're going to be able to take care of Wolverine, and this means we get to see our weapon selection live. One thing we saw in House League yesterday, like I was talking about in the pre-show, was the fact that nature seemed to be all over the place in the Monarch Masters game yesterday, including multiple people going for Rogue. I'm curious if we'll see that again. It kind of looks like we're seeing maybe not as much. Oh, there's still a lot of nature, all things considered. That's half a lobby of nature, but then also almost a half a lobby of Rogue. Let's go through it here. So going from the bottom, Bart from Atlas is going to be picking up the Ember Buckler. That's your Fire Bulwark weapon. Then Thanatos and Hector are going to be picking up the Vinebound Cleaver. Both going for Rogue, but they're not the last one. Wolverine 777 Hype, Elderwood Staff in hand. Zyphet with the Sprout Guard. This thing used to be busted, but it did just get turned down a little bit in a recent patch. We'll see if maybe there's some sort of effect there. No Ketcho also going for Rogue, but they're going for the water variant. Then Draknyen, Tried and True, Elderwood Staff going to be coming on through this time by. And last but not least, Nariba. That's not a Rogue weapon, that's a Strike Boomerang. I think of Nariba, I also think of Rogues. I think back to the Motorverse Cup, I think back to the IPL. Those were the kind of compositions that they would always go for, but switching it up a little bit, maybe the Ranger weapon didn't necessarily go into their favor. We'll have to take a look. Not sure who to root for between Wolverine, Thanatos, and Nariba. Root for all of them, heck, that's A-okay. Bunch of people torn on who to go for, but the one thing that I will mention is that nobody has mentioned about going for Bart. Of course, Bart's a little bit of a mysterious figure in the Illuvium arena because, of course, they might be, I mean, it's rumored that they're playing Fox Spirit's team. But if you say good game to Fox Spirit in Discord, it's like, that's not me, man. That's not me. So Bart coming on through, they've been at the top of the leaderboards, or at least in the top 3 for like what feels like the last 2-3 months. So they are absolutely crushing it, and we'll see how they can perform in a competitive setting. Like I mentioned before, they did have the opportunity to win the last RattyData monthly finale. So they're not necessarily new to the competitive side of things either. Let's take a look. It's no catch-all. They're going up against Draknian, actually. Who haven't I seen yet? Zyfed, I don't think I've seen yet. Let's let these two battle it out. Zyfed off the start again with that Sprout Guard, so this could, in theory, be some sort of Harbinger play, but what it is right now is also just a straight-up level advantage. With the Lynxes in hand, finding a nice early Fern here as well, and a very powerful one at that. Holy smokes there. That is going to be a beautiful pickup there for Zyfed. They're going to be able to take care of Nariba this time by, and we'll get our very first NPC round, where we can kind of start to see where everybody's standing economy-wise for the early stages. Draknian currently being labeled as the, not the most amount of credits in hand, actually second most. Nariba currently with 53. They're the only two in the 50s. There's a handful of players into the 40s, but Hector is currently the one who's spent the most so far into this game. Is Rogues OP right now? Why is there so many Rogues? Let's see what Soda says here. Assume they're back on top with the nerf to fire and corner. And that's a good summary coming out here from Soda actually here in the chat. But yeah, Rogues didn't necessarily need a buff, but since Mystics got neutered and then Inferno Arcanite at least got toned down a little bit, Rogues can actually get a fair shot. But the thing is, they are still going to find themselves in the same problem, where it's a fantastic team composition, but if multiple people are going for it, it will put you in trouble. And that's kind of why I think we're seeing Hector in particular spend very heavily here, not even at level 7, but at level 6 to get some of these rogues online. And I think also more importantly too, get the twine. We can see the verdant puddle coming on through now here for Hector, just to allow for those rogues to have some sort of sustain. A very early Rampy coming out to play here as well. But Wolverine with the very early Furiox going to try and get this 1v7 down. I mean, it's got splash damage, but it ain't that strong. So that's going to be a big win here for Hector, but it costs them an arm and a leg to get there. Yeah, so finding the twine nice and early, that's fantastic, but you're not usually taking that into Gnarl unless you just happen to get lucky. The big thing, of course, is chasing the Vanguards, chasing the Moles, chasing the Penguins. Of course, you're at the end of the game getting the slash in, get the Malura. That's where the big damage lies. But of course, those are both fully evolved tier 3 units. That is way easier said than done. Taking a look at what Thanatos has cooking as of right now, we're going to see a little bit of reliance onto this Revo, which is a beautiful one at that. That thing's absolutely perfect. And then this Lynx in regards to carrying the damage side of things. Here for Bart, still with a handful of tier 0s actually, with the Doka and the Flish going to be trying to do their damnedest. But the Rogues, I do believe, from Thanatos should be able to clean things up. That wasn't even 6v6, so it's going to be a little shot here for Bart. But again, it's still early game, so these shots don't do too much damage. Still have a little bit of wiggle room to get things done. You may notice all of the snow in the background. I absolutely cannot wait to travel here in Obelisk Rising when it does eventually come out. But that's because we're in Taiga Boreal, the region this time by where you're going to be able to get a better chance at getting those drone augments. I don't know what it is. I'll be at Taiga Boreal and I still will not land combat rhythm to save my life even after like 6 rolls, but you at least have a little bit of a better potential to hit what you're hoping for. Now Bart's going to be going up against Zyfed. Zyfed again, we're going to see that Sprout Guard in hand. But what are the carries again? Oh yeah, it was that little Fern in the background. We do have a little bit of a support line here with the Quinks alongside a lesser Appon to stop anybody from diving on through. But now the Lynxes are going to actually start getting into the swing of things here, and this might get a little bit messy. The Fern loves to have a little bit of space between it and its opponents, but with the Lynx directly in their face, they might get close to taking one down. No, not going to be enough at all, actually. The Lynx going to stand tall. Bart going to stop the bleeding here and get themselves a victory. terms of win streaks, Wolverine 777 currently in having one alongside Hector, which I definitely hope Hector did, considering that they did absolutely all in very early at level 6. We're starting to see some level 7s come through from a handful of players. Big Jokel coming through here from Zyfed as an upgrade. Very nice pickup. We're going to watch Wolverine go up against Draknian in just a moment's time, because they have their tried and true, their classic, and I want to see this in action here in just a moment's time, even though Wolverine does have a lot of the pieces that I think Drak would need. This is going to be an Aegis corner comp kind of style coming out here from Drak, but you do end up wanting the Furiox or the Scoriox as your big carry with the Fernite as support. But as we can see here for Wolverine, they actually have the Furiox and the Fern already here, so they are going to absolutely just blow a hole through this tank line of Draknian, and it's not going to be long to get to the squishy bits and have some fried shoe bill to close out this one. Drak going to take another hit here. The fact that the Furies have not showed up is definitely painful, but it is early level 2. What else is holding them back here as we get into this NPC round? Because of course, the Fury or the Snake in general is a tier 4, so getting it at level 6 is rather difficult. I believe your opportunity for that might be like 10% chance of having a tier 4 in general, let alone it being the tier 4 that you want. I mean, everything looks pretty standard. I don't see them necessarily behind on anything. It's just the unluckiness of not finding a snake into this one. But what they do have at least going for them is the fact that they do have their credit situation on lock here. So already above 70, every single round they'll be getting the maximum amount of credits. But them alongside Nariba, who's going to currently, Zyfet, similar situation. A lot of players up there, but the one thing that, or the one consistency I see for at least 2 of them. Oh no, never mind, I lied. As I looked over to Thanatos and saw them spend rather heavily. But no, they do have the rogue thing going on, but then you look at Nokancho and you look at Hector, they've built up a little bit of economy. And what is this? We've got composite chips in play once again. We saw this 2 out of the 3 games in House League yesterday, and we're going to get some more of it right here, right now. And okay, better late than never, Little Fury. So now Drak's carry has arrived, and we actually get an Aegis imprint here, which would allow Drak in particular to go for 4 Aegis, assuming they can get the Blotto. Of course, that's a fully evolved tier 3, which might be a little bit out of the way for what they're trying to do. However, on the other side here for Nariba, they've transitioned this into a fire team. This is looking like just Inferno Invoker, actually, as of right now, and it is going to burn a hole directly through Drak. The heavy nature style going up against the fire, the Inferno. Yeah, that hurts pretty rough there. So unlucky for Drak. Good on Nariba to be able to capitalize onto that one. And let's head back up to Hector to see what they're going, as they're also going up against Nariba. Hector, level 7, already has Ramp Fight online, so that's a nice little pickup. Can't complain about that. One thing I'm also not going to complain about is a Vanguard imprint onto a Rake. Okay, so this thing is going to be absolutely disgusting. And having Vanguard at least online already, it's a little bit of a saving grace. If you are stuck with the stab-in now, you can still get 3 Vanguard, which can do a pretty significant amount of damage. I want to see how this one ends up going down. Nariba spent actually everything in the bank in order to make this happen. I'm keeping an eye on that Rake. As long as it keeps itself safe, it'll be in a great spot, but it is going to be shunted away by the Mammoth immediately into a huge pile of Illuvials, but the Mammoth died actually before the Incisorize could actually go on through. The Rake does die, and another big win for Nariba. This Inferno team is cooking. I mean, both Hector and Nariba spending heavily onto that one, so they're going to be having a hard time trying to upgrade for the next little bit. But let's take a look at some of these other composite chips that we do see across the board. We'll start up at the top where we're going to see Bart. We do currently have what looks like a granite chip added onto their Singe as of this moment. So the potential for 4 granite where it's consistently going invulnerable, that is going to very much be a possibility. Thanatos has the Revenant chip. I need to close my eyes because this is actually my 1.12 flashback team coming on through. I kind of want to stick around and see this, because, yeah, this is now 4 Revenant. It's already been hit. Let's see how it goes versus Wolverine. Wolverine, what were they picking up? I see the Rogue chip, but that can't be the composite chip I think that I'm thinking about. We'll try to catch up with that in a little bit. Rampy to the skies in the corner. That did a hell of a lot of damage. And just look at that stab and go. That middle stage Penguin is hitting like a legend, but we'll have to see if it can keep itself safe. The phase breaker is still there, and the other 2 rogues are going to hop on forth and allow for the tanking. Heck, even the little Ador coming in for a little bit of support. Good squad coming through here for Thanatos. No Cacho. They also got a Vanguard imprint, so all of the rogue players have gotten something that at least takes their team to the next level. But I'd argue with Thanatos, they at least went the way that's more achievable. Even though you can argue that 4 Vanguard is probably way better than for Revenant, not everybody was chasing Revenant. So this is going to allow for Thanatos to get their fully set up Revenant. So yeah, it's going to even reduce attack speed. And considering there's so many rogues in play, that is going to be rather devastating. Nocacho, again, it's rogues, but it's with a bunch of bulwarks here as well. And I guess if there's one thing that's going for Nocacho's favor is that the Revenants cannot tank shred anywhere near as good as Vanguard. However, it's not going to make a difference. That Rampy's going to try its damnedest and brought it really close, all things considered. But that's going to be Thanatos taking the win here, knocking Nocacho down to within a kill shot. Yeah, rogues seem to melt versus 3 Inferno. 100% at least off the last couple that we were seeing. Could absolutely be on to something. Let's see if we can peek at anything else here. Again, yeah, Nariba with the Inferno chip. We've got a Verdant chip here. That's where it was. The Verdant chip onto the Flare. So, okay, 3 Verdant's going to be coming alongside there. Again, we saw the Aegis chip coming out here from Drac. That's going to be a Granite chip onto a Jotun. A nice pickup there for Zyphat. And then, again, the Vanguard chip for Nocacho. So we'll ride along with Nocacho with their next battle here, because this could very well put them off on the wrong foot. The beauty is that this is best of 3. You have a bunch of other games that you can still have the opportunity to come back from. But it really, really hurts. They're making the call out in the chat as well that they've just straight up not hit a single slap-in. Which, as we can see right here, can absolutely confirm. So with this team being set up for Vanguard, it could be set up to 3 Vanguard if Stabin were to show up. But not a single Penguin is currently showing up here for Hector, and that is absolutely heartbreaking for them. But a few might get put back into the pool if Nocacho does go down. Nariba, again, this incredible Inferno team could be the difference maker. If you can knock them out, all those Illuvials go back, potentially Hector. I mean, they've got a bunch of health still, so they can potentially still get maybe a stab in. But let's take a look here. Nocacho and going up against Nariba. The Furiox is not going to get touched, essentially, right off the rip. The first of, or both of the aces going to fly on through, getting some decent damage onto the tank line, so that was pretty decent, all things considered. But it looks very similar to what we saw in the past, where these Infernos are just going to shred, and that is an exact goose egg. Nocacho is going to be our first one out of here, unfortunately, here in the RattyData tournament for game number 1. But there are a lot of people, I believe, are happy with that being the case, because all of those rogues are now back in the shop. And Zyphat, they're going to hang on. So Wolverine, the next one, knocked down. Wolverine versus Dracnian, and that's a ghost battle. But how about Zyphat? What's going on there? And okay, there you go, Hector. That is going to be the stab and finally coming on through. They found the timing there, and Thanatos did also get a stab in. Is that their first or their second? That is actually their second. There is one on the bench still. So oddly enough, even though Thanatos didn't go for Vanguard as the main priority with the actual composite chip, they're probably the closest to actually hitting it, which is incredible. Blotto online here for Wolverine. The big fella is going to try and hold the line going up against Dracnian's Ghost. Let's take a look at this battle, actually, because this very well could be a knockout in a worst-case scenario. Corner versus corner, of course. The Fernite is not going to even be able to actually get involved, so this Furiox in the corner is not going to be able to actually get its attack speed boost as best as it possibly can. It's doing a pretty decent job chewing away at the tank line of Draknien. That Blotto, of course, with that Burden chip, just stays alive so much longer than it should, but it will finally fall. No, never mind. It hangs on by a thread thanks to the healing from the Twine as well. But now both tank lines are essentially gone. It's a battle of the back lines. This is an incredibly close battle, all things considered, but it's the little Fury trying to take out the big brother, and it is going to be able to do so, being essentially handheld by a Ranger so that there's a shield always on top of that Fury. Draknien going to put the hurt here onto Wolverine and knock them out of here. They will be in 7th for game number 1. Now I stop looking at Bart for just a moment's time, and we have a couple big fellas now on the screen as they're now going up against Hector, who's essentially blown the bank to get here, but they have the Vanguards, I believe, online now. 4 Vanguard is enabled, so those rogues are going to be even more healthy, just getting additional healing off of all those empowered attacks. To try and deal with this, we do see Bart going to try and bunker up here in the corner. How much burst damage can Malura, can Ramp Fight do? How long does Stabbin and Rake stay available? And can they get past this just consistently reapplying invulnerability? That is the one thing that's going to just make this super awkward. Look at even the Rake is just stuck trying to actually get into the fight, but they just cannot get there. Ramp Fight to the skies one more time. Stabbin is stuck. Their Omega, the Super Surger, is not online, so they don't have the extra range, but they've nearly made it through all of these bulky fellas. Malura is drunk. They did not hit a damn thing with that Omega, but it might not matter. Malura might have to be forced to carry. No, never mind. Stabbin is going to end up going down. Malura finishes the job. Hector is going to hang on by a thread, even though it felt like their units were AFK half the battle. They found the moments when they needed to, and yet there were so many more moments that weren't even perfectly done, per se. But it worked out in the end, and I'd still argue that based off the start of the game, it seems like this is still anybody's game. But Nariba, they have an absolute monster of a win streak right now. Going for this Inferno style. This isn't even Inferno Arcanite, it's just Inferno Invoker. Invoker's not even in play. But they're going to be leading rather nicely. I want to take a look at Bart here, because here we could see our winner from last time potentially being knocked out a little bit on the early side. Draknien is also threatened, so if possible, I'm going to try and take a look at that at the same time. Let's see how it goes. Bart, you almost held off one set of rogues, but now this is the Revenant style. Does maybe trading the % health damage of Vanguard for the safety of Revenant make it so that there's not enough damage for Thanatos to break through Bart? It looks like that might very well be the case. It's just a matter of dealing with the healer and dealing with this damn penguin. The penguin just doesn't have the damage. They will end up falling. Bart will hold on, knocking Thanatos to 13, and then we will lose Draknien now here at round 21. And again, the big thing that kind of hindered their performance this time by was due to the fact that everybody was just splashing in Furioxes, apparently. While nobody was necessarily going for Inferno Arcanite, heck, even Nariba with a fire-based team isn't going for Inferno Arcanite, but got 1 Furiox, there's 2, there's a 3rd, 4th for Nariba, and then Drak was trying their damnedest. And I love this little Fury, I love watching it go, because oddly enough, Drak gets put into that position so many times where they're just getting barely blocked out due to Furies, or finding the Furies. It still has epic performances. One thing that I feel like will probably be pretty epic as well is this Danger Doggo. As we do see, the Umber is now here, fully evolved with the Vanguard chip. It was already nasty, but I also want to take a look down here where we're seeing Thanatos potentially within kill shot. Bart absolutely within kill shot here as well. I want to try and find a live battle here. It's been a bit since we've watched Nariba play, so let's take a look. Heck, there's even a damn Sinolf on this team. Now this is actually Inferno Invoker. What is Nariba cooking, and do I need to take some notes? Because I might be kind of interested. Fully evolved Pengu is also here. Perfect timing for Thanatos. Ramp fight to the skies. Gonna do some serious damage, taking out a bunch of the fighters. Furiox is down. That's a big carry, but look at the Sin Elf. It's there for backup alongside the Forest and Ramp fights. And the two Arctaces as well stand tall. Thanatos will fall. But now, how about Bart? Are they doing okay here versus Zyphet? We'll have to see. It's going up against Zyphet's Ghost. It looks like this Mammoth is having an absolute great time, just constantly shunting their Illuvials directly into that corner. But do they have the damage to match? It looks like here for Zyphet, this 4 granite style might just be a little bit too much. Yeah, that's some decent damage, but the tanks aren't going down, not at all. They are very, very close, though, to being able to burst this, and with the overtime pulses coming on through, we can very well see Zyphet, can they hang on? This is going to be a very tough one. It does not look like they're going to be able to do so. The guys are still so high health. So Bart will hang on, and then we do end up losing Thanatos, and we do end up losing Hector in this one. With so many players going for Rogue, they were just constantly stepping on each other's toes, which means that the 3 players that we have left in this game were all the players that completely disregarded not just Rogue, but nature as well. So our live battle is going to be Bart versus Nariba. Nariba could potentially survive if they do end up going down. Bart 100% will not be able to. Lots of emphasis here onto the Jotun. Of course, being a granite now as well, going to be very safe. But then how about on the other side here for Zyphet? Never mind. It's actually Bart versus Nariba. What on earth just happened there? Anyway, we'll roll with it. It's still same idea kind of applies here. That geyser essentially just got popped right to half extremely quickly, but the ramp fight will fall. The Furiox on the side of Nariba has not been touched at all, though. The granite is nice, but there is still just so much damage being piled on in between all of these invulnerability checks, and I don't think that the Ranger and the T-Anti will be able to close this out. I mean, it's actually kind of close here. Sinolf, where's the shot? Where's the invulnerability? It's not going to come out, but it does not matter. What a turnaround here from Bart. Game's acting a little funny on me today, but we're still having an absolutely fantastic time here, and we have all of our players now within kill shot. This is extremely scary for everybody involved, and everybody has spent everything they have to potentially make this happen. Nariba is going to be going up against the Ghost of Zyphet, but of course Zyphet is going to be going up against Bart, and the last time this battle happened, it did go in the favor of Bart. 3 HP in a dream to potentially finish off game number 1 for our returning champion. They could somehow pull this off. Quiet rate off the rip. Again, trying to actually crack this egg that is this corner composition when you see shields like that is so damn tough. You've got the Enchanter and the Empath just with additional healing and shields just all over the place. But the Forest is being relatively blocked up at the top here. We're seeing the Axon deal with it. And then we're also seeing the Jotun. It's going after that Singe, but look how slow it is at actually trying to take this thing down. With the Ador's additional healing, it's just making it so tough to actually crack through. Meanwhile, as all of this is happening, the fully evolved Mammoth is just doing shunt after shunt. But unlike the last battle, it does look like Zyphet was able to hold off the Mammoth. And now that it's gone down, could this be the chance here for Zyphet to potentially win this entire game if all things go their way? The overtime pulse is going to be coming on through. The Jotun is being focused. Good charm coming out from the Gazatep. Can that turn and allow for the Jotun to be the last one standing? It absolutely will be. Zyphet will win game number 1 here in the RattyData monthly finale. Nicely done. Full results onto that one will be Nariba in second, with Zyphet in first, Nariba in second. Bart from Atlas will be third, Hector from Mad Dogs fourth, Thanatos fifth, Dracnian sixth, Wolverine 777 seventh, and Nocacho going to be in 8th to round up this one. But the beauty of all this, we're just getting started. This is a whole best of 3 scenario, so we have a little bit of time here to potentially make a comeback. Just because one game didn't go your way doesn't mean that the tournament is over. That was a good one. The Rogues stepping on each other's toes was just extremely extremely rough for the players involved there. They still held their own, all things considered, but I do definitely believe that it had a lot to do with the composite chips that did come through and allow them to hit those maxed out thresholds at least a little bit there. All right, just sent Ratty the code for game number 2, and we'll be getting into that in just a second. Could not break it. The Furiox was tingling it. Let's see. Let me catch up here with chat. Yeah, rogues being tough definitely has me feeling a certain way. Of course, rogues couldn't be weak for very long now, could they? It's not the fastest that we've seen rogues start to pop up a little bit, but they didn't even get buffed, right? Just, of course, Inferno, Arcanite, and Mystics were just so damn good before that rogues didn't stand a chance. But now they have a little bit of wiggle room, but of course, with multiple people, especially since a lot of our long-term players, with rogues being as good as they were from like way back in the early stages of competitive, I do believe a lot of players had rogue teams as their, essentially some of their firsts. So they're probably one of their more trained teams as well. And could be a case of going back to old reliable, so to speak, like I was saying with the Steam Harbinger builds. But again, with it, it's not a free win just because you get a stab in anymore. So I remember back in IPL, I remember back with patch 1.12, when you can have a stab in, throw a Revenant chip on that thing, and there would be 5 or 6 rogues in the top 6. It was pretty disgusting. I'm thankful we're not at that point right now, but a fantastic start here for Zyfet as well. They were able to handle all of that rogue shenanigans, that corner-based composition, and pick it off. Just checking to see if we're taking a break or not, if we're going in. 2 players away from getting into game 2. Sota. Rogues seem to be strong, but arguably not enough to be contested by 2 people. Exactly. So, if the opportunity arises where you can get it rather cleanly, then okay, you're probably in great shape. But it's not something everybody should be going for. So a little bit of weapon mind games at the early stages could very well be something that's necessary. We've got all 8 players in lobby. I'm just waiting on the go-ahead. There it is. Let's get into the game. And then just as a reminder, in case you're just joining us now. So after one game, we have Zyfet in the lead after winning game number 1. Nariba in second, and then a returning winner from last season, Bart in third. Hector going to be in fourth, Thanatos fifth. Drekni in sixth, Wolverine 777 in seventh, and Nokacho in eighth. Of course, with these RattyData tournaments, these happen every single month, and it's like an all-month affair. They basically do a weekly sit-and-go session, if not sometimes multiple sit-and-go sessions throughout the week, where there are prizes even just attached to the weekly ones, like a total of $100 worth of fuel, and you can kind of see some of the splits here on the side. But you can absolutely get involved for this next season coming up. I would imagine it's a similar situation. You come on into Ratty's site, there is a ticket that you can purchase, a tournament-specific ticket. Why was that so difficult? But you can end up picking up, or there is a premium option that lets you get a bunch of the other features on Ratty's website. and you can come compete every single week, and all of these competitions add up to that monthly finale, which we are at right here, right now. We saw $500 worth of prizing last month. We're seeing a handful of awesome Illuvitars, rare Illuvitars, and rare Illuvials being sent out here as well for this season. So if you do want to get involved next time by, make sure you go to the RattyData.com website and get your ticket there. We are right around the corner for game number 2. We did just start that up a second ago. Just going to load on in. Oh, and it should be an aggressive one. All right, loading into game number 2 of 3 here in our RattyData monthly finale. And this one, as we see all the green water, or whatever, the acid, whatever you want to call it, this means we're in Crimson Waste, which means one of two things. But both of those things are very, very aggressive in nature. And we've got, I'd argue, the most aggressive one of all. Players are going to be taking an additional 2 drone damage every single time they lose a round. So this game could very well go a little bit quicker due to the amount of health being lost. Let's take a look and see at the weapons this time by here for our players. Zyphet, our winner from game number 1, going with the Flame Warden Staff. You can absolutely potentially still go Inferno Mystic. We'll have to see. Draknian may be thinking a little bit of the same, but at the same time, this also screams his traditional Aegis build here to me. Hector going to be picking up the Lava Gauntlet this time by. Bart is going to be picking up the Aqua Blaster. Thanatos with the Vinebound Cleaver. We see the Ember Bastion coming on through for Nariba. Wolverine 777 Hype with the Sylphid Blade, potentially going for Mud, maybe? And then Nokacho, last but not least, will be with the Sprout Guard in hand. So a much different lay of the land, so to speak, when it comes to weapons this time by. Because now for Thanatos. As someone who's super experienced on the rogue side of things, the fact that they look like they're going to be able to do it uncontested is going to be very dangerous for everybody in the lobby. And then, like we're seeing here with Soda in the chat, they're saying that this is a good region here for Thanatos, but bad for Bart, in considering the weapons that are drawn, because a lot of those water Illuvials, they really start to ramp up once they hit those later levels, those later stages. Meanwhile, with Thanatos, get to level 7 and my Pengu go burr, and you're basically in great shape. Zyphet with his Virtuous Lynx was trying its damnedest into level 60 as well. Damn, that was a nice Lynx, but not going to be enough to get past Wolverine this time by. The little Doka coming on through. Heck, even your Dokas are level 50. Like, so definitely some of our most experienced and best players here in Illuvium. Now, Nariba getting absolutely kicked in off the first couple of rounds here. And they did make a hell of a run in the last game playing a very similar scenario. They took a lot of hits early, because I think, in fact, they were going for the title shift. I think it was supposed to be water-based rogue in game number 1. But then they made the switch to Inferno and was able to take a fantastic win streak all the way up to the top 3. But with it being Crimson Waste, you are going to lose a lot more health doing it this way. So I'm curious to see how it will go down. The little snail firing shots from the side. It's only a level 37, so it doesn't necessarily have as much Omega power compared to its counterparts, but it's not going to matter. Oddly enough, the Grand Atipo is going to hold the line and be the tank there to let that snail shine on forth. Nicely done there for Nariba. And also considering the playstyles for the... Okay, I see what you're saying there, Sota. Soda's guess here for the players going to win this one is going to be Wolverine for first, and then Thanatos second. That's extremely interesting. Now, for Wolverine, they have a few ways that they can take this. Of course, it's still drilled into my brain that whenever I see somebody with a Sylphid Blade, that they're essentially going to 100% go Mud. But of course, that is very risky. While the tier 1s, you can have multiple fully evolved tier 1s of the same species. Like, you can have 2 fully evolved Exalted Monkeers, but it still could get contested and slow you down to the point where you're stuck at level 5 and level 6 for so long that you just lose too much health. So I'm curious to see how they're going to end up going through here. They're relying a lot on a Lynx, actually, to kind of be the carry. They've turned this little Lynx into a rogue, oddly enough, so it's going to be diving on fourth here, going up against Drac. Let's see if I can get a little bit of a better angle on this one, as we do see immediate Lynx on Lynx violence alongside a Gorilla, who's just happy a third party in onto that battle. But a lot of the front line here for Wolverine has already fallen. The Lynx is right around the corner from falling as well, but every one of these auto attacks just hit like an absolute truck. And with the lesser monk, you're actually going to stand tall into this one. That is a fantastic win here for Wolverine. It looks like it was going to be Drac taking that one for the longest time. Nariba, what's going on with you in Zyfed? This one a little bit of a longer battle. We do again see the Virtuous Lynx coming on through with all these augments. It's kind of like support line versus support line, but then Psych, there's a Flish, and there is a Fury in the background for Zyfed, lighting them up. How about No Cacho? Of course, they had a rough game number 1, being the first one who unfortunately saw get eliminated, but can we see a little bit of a turnaround? So far, not quite going to be there. 68 health currently, and we're not even at round 10 yet, but that is the nature of Crimson Waste. We're going to see the Axon coming on through. Level 61, a very nice Axon. We see the TNT coming on through, and hell, that's a beautiful TNT. That's basically perfect, considering TNT essentially never moves. The Ranger is going to be linked with the TNT for now, so it's going to be early Granite, but then the Invoker is not going to be in place right now. That isn't going to get the full utilization out of the Axon, but getting Granite is still a nice little start. We'll have to see if that fights them, though. The TNT, of course, being able to attack 3 targets is pretty strong. Can they maybe get the kill shot before the taunt? It's not going to come through. I mean, they do at least get the 1 Lynx, rather, before going down, so they're at least going to save 1 point of HP. But No Cacho, the lose streak here for them is going to continue as of this moment. So we take a look and see what Hector's up to. Let's flip this around for just a moment's time, where we're going to see the double Lynxes ready to rock as per tradition here in an ownership style match. A very early foe coming in here. As I say that, oh, it disappeared. Okay, there it is. The early foe for Hector. And then we have the greater Tipo from earlier, level 30, but heck, it knows what to do, trying to just hold the line and drop shields. How will this team do up against No Cacho, as this Flare is going to lead on in? Little bit of a mixed bag. Start this one off. Try and get a better angle onto the battle at hand here. The TNT in the corners are going to be nice and safe, with the exception of that ghosting screen coming out from the foe. Got a few shots into it, but now that the entire front line has fallen, this just means it's all up to the TNT to actually get this done. And as they wind up, it's not going to be enough. No Cacho going to get another shot towards them. Hector going to win that one. Nice little mixture here for Hector to start things off. They hit that 3 fire threshold, so you get a bunch of additional attack damage, but not necessarily committed to any sort of play style, at least as of yet. And then let's hop in with Drac. So a relatively similar scenario, I do believe, than what we saw in game number 1 here for Drac, with the, not the Scorpion, but with the Furiox, or the Furioxes being a very highly prioritized Illuvial, trying to hit them, especially at early levels, not much of a chance. So as of right now, we're actually going to be Aegis buffing a very unlikely carry with our little Flish, the level 46 Flish, loaded up and ready to rock. Let's see if this little Flish can actually get this done, but on the alternate side, Bart has this beautiful Alfie looking to lock this Flish down, immediately going to chunk it down to half, and Drac also only has level 6 compared to level 7 here for Bart, which does mean the numbers advantage is just going to be too great. Bart does have 8 water as well. I was wondering why those casts were coming out so quickly. Well, that is why, let alone the fact that all those water units also get stacking Omega power every single time they fire a cast off. It's like the better version of Invoker, basically. But we have an NPC around to kind of stop the bleeding, calm things down for just a second, and see if maybe some of these rolls could start going players' way. Thanatos, again, the only one going for Rogue as of this moment. They have the little slap in, but that is basically it as of right now. But they've been able to take their time getting into level 7, to the point where they've even essentially been maxed out on credit, so looking pretty good. Wolverine, they were going for Mud. Do they have any of the Exalted Monkeys? Not yet, but they don't seem to be too highly contested. They just have to fight Thanatos for maybe a Gorilla, but that is very doable, all things considered. Zyphet went for the true Inferno style. This is actually going to be Inferno Revenant off the start here. And then Drac is definitely going to be a player that I have my eye on. There we go. The Fury is here now, so it will be able to start utilizing to get the Flish out of there. So that will now allow for all those augments to come onto this Fury, which I believe is essentially the safe option. I like this build coming out here from Drac, because as much as you want to have, say, 2 of these Piercing Force reactors and a bunch of attack speed, that would be fantastic. However, you go up against an Umber, you're going to get cooked. So I like the switch over to Disruptive Force Reactor as the 3rd augment, give you some true sight, so that if an Umber is in the cards, which it absolutely will be, I imagine, if there's going to be Bart with 8 water, you at least have some way to actually hit the damn Umber. But in this meantime, in the battle with Hector, let's see how it goes for both sides. Good Ghosting Scream coming up from a foe, does go through everybody, but the Archos just heals it completely back up, like it's nobody's business. This looks very good now here for Drag. Hector, their little Fury is going to end up just getting swarmed. Unfortunate for them, but they will take a hit once again. Still sitting at 73 HP, which is going to have them 2nd in the lobby. So they do have some wiggle room still to figure out exactly where they want that team composition to go. How about Bart? What are they cooking now? They're going up against Wolverine. Let's take a look. So first off, Tsunami Invoker is going to be online, or at least the Invoker part of it will be. And never mind, they do actually make the switch up. Now that they have the Singe on the field with a Rake, they're going to opt to turn this into Steam. So the big carry in this instance will be the Rake, but you do have the supporting cast with the Sin Elf, heck, even with a little baby Riptor coming on through for some potential damage. And do not sleep on the Ranger with the Aqua Blaster. This thing can absolutely be a carry as well. And in the meantime, while I was talking about all that, Wolverine pulled the trigger, I believe, to the point where they should have Mud completely online. 4 Mud is here, and that Monk here, if they can get that splash damage onto that Sin Elf, that might be the way they end up winning this. But the numbers advantage that Wolverine has to go up against right now is going to be way too damn much. Level 6 compared to level 8, so that will be Bart taking that one. But the Mud portion of this now is all set up. We just now need the Rip Lance as kind of the finishing blow to go full berserker here for Wolverine. And we could maybe not even have enough time, because both of these players that we're seeing here now, No Cacho versus Wolverine, are down to potentially within kill shot. It might be a stretch for Wolverine to get taken out here, but No Cacho, 11 HP. They have a handful of decent Illuvials. In fact, the Axodon's going to come out to play this time by alongside the Matuve. Nice level 60 perfect Mammoth on that one. But is there enough damage on this team? I see a lot of tankiness, I see a lot of beefiness, but there is next to no damage. And I wonder if this Mud Squad is just going to shred it. Let's take a look. Level 7 to level 7. This is about as even as it gets for both of these players. The Monk here is going to be forced to pop that Phase Breaker. That's the major carry with all of the augments right now here for Wolverine. So if that thing does go down, that could be troublesome. Shunt from the Mammoth, but the Mammoth does not survive, which does mean for the 2nd game in a row, we will unfortunately see No Cacho get knocked out of here. But Wolverine, with all the Mud units, going to be able to keep themselves in the game at least a little bit longer. But how about our winner from game number 1? Zyphet is now within a dangerous position. Again, this is Inferno Revenant. 6 Fire online here as well, with the intention of keeping the score or the Spheriox alive. They at least have the 1 Piercing Force Reactor, which is absolutely fantastic, but otherwise, it's all these support augments that are kind of throwing them off, I imagine. But can Zyphet hold off Thanatos, who has been able to get at least a handful of these rogues? It's Rogue, Revenant, Vanguard, but both at level 2. So not completely fully loaded and ready to rock, but still has plenty of damage installed here into this one. Ramp fights to the skies on both ends. Going to do some serious damage all around. The Penguins being focused actually from the Ranger up in the top. A little bit of a pincer move coming on through here from the Ranger. Can they kill the Penguin? They do, actually. So Wolverine should be able, or not Wolverine, but Zyphet should be able to hold on a little bit longer. Thanatos will hang on. Hector, how did it go with your game? I think they're still in here. It was an NPC round. Okay, I see. I was just a bit late, but there we go. We have a handful of players now that will be within kill shot for this next battle. And Bart is back and holding the top as of right now. The 8 water with Steam Team. Getting the dual F is kind of like the icing on the cake, so to speak, to get up to 3. Or just say screw it and go for Umber. But there are a handful of players that happen to have rakes at this point, including Hector, who is down here going up against Drac again. We'll stick with Hector for this one, I do believe. Jokul has evolved into. Nice little pickup there for Hector. But how about for Drac? How does their team look compared to last time? Okay, at least this time we do actually have the Furiox getting onto the board here for Drac Nien. The Fur Knight is here for support and not forced to be the carry this time. So Drac has a bit of a better chance, but this is still a solid squad coming out here from Hector. The Singe coming on through at the last possible second as well for a little bit of a tank upgrade alongside the Goliath. And yeah, shoutouts to the 100 TPI Jokul that I just happened to pass over real quick. And that is an absolutely gorgeous polar bear and nearly level 60 as well. Nice pickup there, Hector. But we have to see if it's enough to actually take them down this time. It's going to be a little bit of a rough scenario for the foe. Can it get in? Actually, it's a pretty decent lineup. If it can start getting some Omegas off, it should be good, but we're going to see a little bit of a split battle here. The little Fury on the green side will end up going down, and now all of a sudden Drac looks like a completely different player now that they found the Illuvials they were looking for, and with that we will lose Hector. We will lose Zyphet as well. So 2 of our players that did rather well in game number 1, 2 of our players from the top 4 in game number 1 will end up falling out early in this one. Now there could be potentially another one here in just a second. Neither of these players are safe. Wolverine did manage to land this absolutely gorgeous Scorpion. Hey, come back here, you. Get back here. Yeah, you. That's it. Rip Lance is here ready to rock. So that is going to be another Berserker coming on through alongside all these mud units. Did also notice the Cara Dulox a little bit earlier. Very, very nice as well. A little bit lower on the level side of things, but getting the fully evolved Water Buffalo is definitely going to be fantastic at keeping these Illuvials alive. But it's all about keeping the Monk here, and now, more importantly, keeping the Rip Lance alive. Rip Lance, again, probably one of the best Illuvials when it comes to single target damage, thanks to that Toxic Skewer doing health-based damage. The bigger the target, the harder it hits. But it does suffer when it comes to trying to do any sort of splash damage, as it basically has none. It's going to be diving in onto that Goliath, but look at that. That's a nicely tanky beetle that still just ends up dropping rather quickly. But now the Furiox is in the corner. Good shunt from the Mammoth. This very well could be the end of Nariba's run. And that might be it for now anyway. They still, of course, have another game, but they will drop out of here in 5th place after I believe it was the 2nd in game number 1. So with all these players going down, the one who's really happy in this instance is actually Bart. The playstyles and the region might have been going against them, but they have been in a pretty controlling position, all things considered. But one thing you might notice, the glow, the glowing line here, the win streak for Bart, it's gone. So I imagine that Thanatos might have taken them down just a moment prior, as we're going to see Wolverine versus Thanatos. Right here, right now. No fully evolved Vanguards this time here for Thanatos is going to make things at least a little bit troublesome. The Adorito gets absolutely cooked right off the rip here. Ramp fight off to the right-hand side. I mean, it could get itself into a pretty decent spot to hit essentially every single carry, and it damn well does. But where are the other carries here on the green side? They're absolutely nowhere to be found. Rip Lance is still standing tall. The ramp fight's going to try its damnedest, but it will not be enough. And with the drone hitting the acid, we will see Thanatos actually hang on by a thread. Never mind, I've been absolutely baited. Which still means, though, Let's get this accurate now. So this is actually 1 HP in a dream here for Thanatos to potentially have a run here. And a perfect time to find Malura. That is going to be the second Vanguard now online. You could do the Vanguard naturally. And again, they've actually made their Ranger so that it's a Spore Revenant instead of Vanguard. With a lot of tanky Illuvials coming out here from Draknyen, who is on a win streak currently with their squad. Can you or is it worth going for the 3 Revenants compared to the 3 Vanguard? We'll have to see. Malura's in a pretty decent position if they can get past this Joko before casting. They do not do so, but the ramp fight still hit pretty hard. But the big thing here for Draknyen is that Furiox is still very, very safe. The Charm, though, that is absolutely brutal. That is going to put them right in the line of fire. And Thanatos, the Rogues are coming to play. A big win here to keep themselves in the game. And it couldn't have come at a better time. NPC round as well. To try and strategize. Where do you go from here? Yeah, the very fast Rip Lance coming on through from Wolverine definitely did some serious damage, but will end up bowing out here at 4th place, and that's just the riskiness of Mud, right? Or specifically with Mud Berserker, considering they're at such an early level for so long, they had to then push the all-in and go for credits for their level instead of a potential upgrade sometime a little bit later. But let's see what we get here. It's actually going to be Thanatos is going up against the Ghost of Bart. But then Drak is going up against Bart live. A big upgrade here for Thanatos. They were able to get the fully evolved slash in. Now, I think even though this is a ghost battle, I think I might hop over to Thanatos in just a second. Okay, Drak with the Behemoth. The Jotun is here now as well. You know what, live battle. Let's stay with this one here for the time being here. This could very well end up being our top 2 for this game. The first cast from the Sinolf going directly into the Arctase, who tanks it and just flies away, so nobody else actually gets damaged by the first cast. The second one, though, will go onto the Fernite, but it's still looking very good for Draknyen. That Furiox is still essentially untouched. It will finally get shot down, but with the Behemoth, the Polar Bear in their face, they're not going to be able to hold the line. And Thanatos, they were able to beat Bart as well, it looks like. We could potentially have a double kill shot here. Bart going up against the Ghost of Thanatos. But then Thanatos going up against Draknyen. I think I just saw there the fully evolved Mammoth now showing up here for Bart. So that's going to now be 3 Harbinger online. Could be huge if things go their way. Everybody has spent everything they have in the tank in regards to credits. Drak with the pivot over to some Magma as well, with all these Illuvials diving on through. Make yourself a little bit tankier, do a little bit of damage back. I definitely like the idea. And diving directly onto a Polar Bear is not what you want to be doing if you're a rogue, but the ramp fight's going to fire that Infernal Skyfall right in its face, but it gets handled for the most part. Archos, where's that heal? We need it to come out pretty quickly, but again, the Furiox is still very healthy for the time being, but the tank line has been completely shredded now that Slashin is here, but the Slashin goes down very quickly as well. The Fern and the Furiox are going to be able to deal with this one alongside the Ranger. A fantastic run here from Thanatos, but it is not going to be enough, which now leaves us heads up one-on-one Illuvium between Draknyen and Bart. Dualef is here, and it's loaded up on Omega Power. Almost perfect in this instance. Getting the triple. Oh god, is this the patch when Dust was super overpowered? Because I feel like I recognize this build. Immunis Void Reactors all over the place with plenty of Omega Power and giving it plenty of attack speed, or plenty of Omega Power to likely the Umber, which is here too. This is going to be a devastating one, potentially the end of the road for game number 2. If Drak can hold them off, Let's see how this goes. Duolef! What a shot, but what a fantastic job from the Arctace. Got out of there immediately, but the Furiox is down. That's the big carry. This is just going to be the snowball from hell now as we see that Umber with 2 HP and a Dream doesn't care, gets healed, and that is a lot of Illuvials standing here. One more shot. Drac needs to find an answer as to how the heck they can deal with that Duolef. How can they keep that Furiox alive? Of course, we still got game number 3 right around the corner here as well, and it's going to be a big shakeup. The big winner in all of this, I do believe, is Bart, considering they got the 3rd place finish in the first one. But let's see how it goes. A Fernite's going to immediately be killed off, so the support line for the Furiox is immediately gone. But the Umber, it's so close to dying, but immediately the Duolef locks down directly onto the Furiox. And once again, I feel like we've seen this before with the big carry down. That shall be it. And your winner from last month's event here in the RattyData monthly tournament, Bart, will take game number 2. Congratulations, Bart. The region was against them, the playstyle was against them, it did not matter. Bart will take the win here with a very heavy water steam-based team. Dracnian, though, a much better performance here in game number 2, finding the Furiox at least, and turning that into a 2nd place. Thanatos gets uncontested Rogues, brings it all the way up to 3rd. Wolverine with Mud Berserker went for their early rolls, got everything, but just not enough to keep it going past 4th. Nariba solid efforts, of course, once again, with the Furiox being contested, made things awkward, but they tried their damnedest nonetheless and still got 5th. Syphet, who won game number 1, went for an Inferno style, but it did get shut down pretty heavily, unfortunately. Hector also got shut down rather early, unfortunately, went for a fire-based style, which also ended up being contested, and then Nokacho went for the big, heavy Harbingers, but unfortunately could not survive long enough to get to that big Mammoth, which would have absolutely been a major game changer. We'll take a look at the stats in just a moment's time. I'm quickly getting the code up here for game number 3. Send this off to Ratty. Okay. So after 2 games, let's take a look and see what our results are currently at. So now, thanks to that victory, Bart has now taken the top spot once again with a 3-point gap over 2nd and 3rd place respectively, where we're seeing Zyphet and Nariba hold those spots. Dracnian going to be in 4th after that fantastic 2nd place finish in game number 2. Thanatos with that 3rd place is going to move up, tying Drac actually in the 5th place spot for 10 points. Wolverine and Hector down in 6th and 7th as of this moment with 7 points, and then Nokacho, a little bit of a rough one so far with 2 8th places, but can still absolutely make a move up. Yeah, Nariba doing well, absolutely. So I remember even seeing Nariba during Motiverse Cup time. I feel like they were one of the players that got bit pretty hard when all of a sudden it was realized that there was a bug in the game that didn't allow for TPI to be or the stats to be distributed properly. They had a solid team, but then all of a sudden during Motiverse Cup, it seemed like they were having at least a little bit of a hard time. Like they made, I believe, the finals, but had a hard time there. But so far here today, they're in fantastic shape. They're on the podium right now. It's a hard-fought podium. But still plenty of Illuvium still to go here. One more game. Alright, people are loading in, so we'll be moving very shortly as well. First off, also before we get into our final game, again, make sure you go take a look at Bondaddy Ratty's website, of course, RattyData.com. If you want to get involved into these monthly tournaments, there's sit-and-go sessions that happen every single week. There is the monthly finale, like you see here. I imagine there'll be another one for August. And all it takes is a ticket off of their website. There is 2 different tiers, if I recall correctly, where there's a cheaper just tournament entry ticket. But then if you get the club or the premium membership one, that one also allows for some of the other more advanced tools that RattyData does happen to have. That isn't just tied to Illuvium Arena, but things like Illuvium 0, Beyond, and just all around the universe. So definitely do take a look at RattyData.com if you're interested in participating in these tournaments moving forward. Now we're just waiting on our players to get loaded in. I'm curious if I'll see a table flip moment in a moment's time. We'll definitely have to see. Because I think 2 players might have tapped out. I'll wait for the confirmation. But there is a world where we maybe run this one with either 7 or 6 players. Okay. Yeah, while I wait for that confirmation, I also do want to give a big thank you to everybody who's tuning in to these events and tuning into the streams as well. Of course, I do stream Illuvium essentially 5 days a week. Saturdays, I don't normally stream, but it's a little bit of a special one since we have the RattyData tournament here. But like, I'm going to be taking Sunday off, but then Monday, for example, we're going to be trying to build the best team that could win while also being the cheapest. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to reverse that. What is the most expensive team that I can build that actually performs in Illuvium Arena? We then go over news on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we'll have Illuvium Arena House League, which is my event where it is a free-to-enter community event. It's not as like majorly competitive as something like we would see here in the RattyData tournament. But the main goal with that is to be able to grow your collection, grow your Illuvials, rather than monetary prizing, so to speak. So if that's something, if you want to come hang out again sometime soon and see Illuvium grow, well, drop a subscription here onto the channel. I'd love to have you back sometime. Sota says, can I take their place? I don't think there's something in the rules for that. I don't think I can do that. Yeah, we've got 7 out of 8. Just waiting on the confirmation. Yeah, so as soon as I get the confirmation from Ratty, we'll see. But it's been 2 pretty interesting games so far. I mean, the first one, of course, having all the composite chips get involved, made it a very clustered, rogue-heavy kind of game number 1. But then game 2 was not anywhere near the same. A little bit of diversity towards the front. We did know that water was going to be strong, but Bart absolutely piloted that to perfection. Catch up with chat here for a second. Yeah, Nariba doing well. Yeah, that was a beautiful Joe goal before that 100 TPI one. It's crazy the amazing Illuvials that these players just happen to have. Like, majority of them 85 TPI, if not higher. Sure, some of them do need a little bit of leveling, but for the most part, they're essentially in an incredible spot. I'd ask Sota and I'd ask the chat who's their pick to potentially take it all here in this event. But I figure you probably want to see the weapons and such first before we get to that. Yeah, so we're just waiting for Hector, it looks like. So while I do wait for Hector, going to take a very, very quick second. Never mind, actually, we've gotten the go-ahead to just go. So we're going to go now. I was debating on taking a break, but nope, we will get things started. Our final match of the day. There we go. Yeah, Bart is an easy pick at this point, 100%. With the 3-point lead, that definitely sets them up for success, right? Because in this instance, we would need, say, Zyphet or Nariba to win this thing while Bart also choking, 3 points behind them? Or 3 spots behind them at the very worst? There is a lot going into Bart's favor that this will make it their second tournament victory in a row. But there is no guarantee. And of course, there's still the battle for the top 3 at the very, very worst case scenario if Bart does manage to go on a dominating run, which I'm not saying they're going to, but if they were to, again, the pricing goes all the way, I believe, to the top 3, where we'll have Illuvitars and very strong Illuvials, all of them above 90 TPI at the very minimum, which is an incredible pickup no matter what. All right, let's load in. So we did end up moving on without Hector. It does look like they've tapped out and gone quiet after the last game. So no matter what the result ended up being, of course, GG's Hector. But because of that, we will have a bot in the lobby for our final game. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, our final game of the tournament. Let's see if we can have ourselves a fantastic time as we watch Bart, currently leading the tournament by 3 points, looking to get their second tournament victory in a row. But there are still plenty of players looking to try and take them down. It is not by any means a set thing or guaranteed thing as of yet. Once again, introducing our players here one more time. We've got Wolverine777 from Hype. We've got No Cacho. We've got Drakyen. We've got Bart from Atlas. We have Thanatos. We have Nariba and Zyphet. Nariba and Zyphet are currently second and third, respectively, in this tournament at 11 points compared to Bart's 14. And they are the hopes here of essentially getting an overthrow unless something absolutely catastrophic happens to Bart in our final game. We'll take a look at the weapons in 1 second, but I want to give a look at the region itself that we're playing on here. Crystal Shores is the first time we're seeing it here today, where you're just going to be getting a stackable free reroll on every single round. So whenever you want to pull the trigger, you've got a bunch of rolls to potentially make that happen. But now let's take a look at the weapons. Wolverine with the Vinebound Cleaver. Let me move this arena over so you can see while I'm talking about it. Wolverine with the Vinebound Cleaver. Bart with the Vinebound Cleaver. It's the first time we're going to see them commit to rogues, I think, today. Drakyen with their Tried and True Flame Warden Staff. You're probably going to be able to play the Tried and True with that. Nariba with the Earth Empath weapon, the Shadow Maul. We'll skip the bots. Then we got Zyphet with the Elderwood Staff. Thanatos with the Tempest Lance. This could very well be rogue still in disguise, but maybe not. You can still absolutely make like Frost Vanguard with this, so I'm gonna hold my tongue before making a prediction on that one. Then last but not least, No Cacho with the Ripple Flail, gonna be coming on fourth. The only one with a water weapon, so that could be an interesting flash in the pan if No Cacho is able to take a water team potentially for an absolute ride to the top. Got, of course, still a ways to go to get there, though, and off the start, let's take a look at No Cacho in particular. Of course, they've been having a little bit of a harder time in the tournament, but Still a fantastic player in their own right. I like what they've got going on so far. Double Lynx is going to be flooding the field alongside a Bruiser Augment. Both these rogues diving on through. Let's see how quickly those Lynxes can just tear apart these squishies. The rogue immediately getting destroyed. And then as long as these Lynxes are attacking the same target, it should essentially be a cakewalk. But the untargetability from the Phase Breaker once again on Wolverine's Lynx is going to make it so that the Doka, oddly enough, is going to be able to clean things up here from Wolverine. A very close back and forth battle, but Wolverine going to take that. Next, I want to take a look at our winner from game number 1. Of course, Zyphet. Game number 1, they went for a more Earth-based build, potentially, I think, Enchanter, if I recall correctly. But now we've got a little bit of nature going on, potentially a corner composition. Once again, double Lynxes coming out to play, and just stacking the empaths in there to make it so that the Ranger is essentially only shielding the empaths as well. So these Lynxes are going to go run free, but they're not going to be anywhere near their support line. Now, the positioning like this, I mean, you'd think that you'd want to have your support line a little bit further up with your Lynxes in this case, unless you're intentionally trying to lose streak, or you think the backline is enough to crush it. Let's see how this goes here. This is a backline versus backline battle, but the Archie is going to be the first to fall, then the Atipo here on the side of Draknien. But the Ranger here from Draknien, of course, has a bunch of damage attached to that Flameborn staff, and it will be able to take care of the one. So now it's just the Fleesh and the Ranger going up against the Ranger of Zyphet, and that's going to be essentially a perfect case scenario for Drak, but also if Zyphet was looking to lose streak, that was the best case scenario almost as well, because only 2 Illuvials or 2 players on the field, when you take damage, that's not too bad. And at least it's not like Crimson Waste, where you're getting consistently smoked with 2 extra damage. At the NPC round, let's take a look where we are at economy-wise. I see a lot of 40s all around, with the exception of Thanatos, who has spent a handful of credits already into this one, for what's looking like a almost air-exclusive team coming out here for Thanatos off the start. We've not seen this from them, at least as of yet. I'm still not convinced, though, that this isn't actually like maybe some sort of Revenant rogue. But we'll have to see as we go on through. Let's take a look at Nariba and see what they're doing. That's a very early little Squiddy coming on through here. So we've got 2 Scions, of course, big burst damage potential coming out here from the Squiz, but it's super, super frail. The first shot from the Flish of Drak, though, shouldn't necessarily be going towards the Squid, so maybe if the Squid can actually find some resets, can blow up some targets, that Nariba should be able to take this one down. They are also a level ahead, though, compared to Drak, so this might just be an absolute overwhelming rush coming out here from Nariba in the end. But a lot of the front line did just end up going down, and that Squid did just tank the entirety of that Flish beam. Now the support in the Flish alongside the other Flish is going to hang on. There goes the Squid. The 2-on-1 here from Drak is going to end up getting the win. Nariba might have had the level advantage, but could not quite cook up enough damage to take care of the Flish in the back line. So they will end up falling this time by. Drak going to be currently uncontested. I'm trying to see what Bart's up to. Oh, we got first versus first. Yeah, well, I think we have to take a look at this, right? Both of these players completely undefeated as of right now, but of course Bart actually going for the Rogue Revenant with a very quick pickup here onto the T-Ruo, getting that Revenant online for additional shielding, of course, on crits, and that will be very, very nice, all things considered, especially if the Flish is just going to get mobbed essentially immediately right as the round starts. The Ranger now is going to be kind of stuck being the one doing the damage, as well as that Arctes that's all the way up on the northern side of this arena. Does the Ranger get one more cast? They will not. It's going to be all up to the Ace to be able to somehow close this out. They get one of the Lynxes down, but they're not going to be able to deal with the second, and the Valente's there. A level 60 Valente, my goodness, going to also be there for the assist. Zyphet's battle still in progress against one of the bots. Now, we might not be talking about the bots a lot, but this is very well something that can happen. I don't understand what it is about bots lately. First off, they all tend to go for rogues, like 9 out of 10 times. but they go for very aggressive builds to the point where I cannot knock anybody who ends up going down to a bot. So Zyphat going to take a lot of heat so far to start this one off. And now we can actually take a look and see what Thanatos is cooking alongside what Zyphat's doing right here, right now. Of course, seeing that Tempest Lance come on through. Like I was saying before, I thought that maybe this was going to be some sort of Frost and Vanguard kind of style. But as it stands right now, the Ranger is set up for Tempest Aegis. Neither is going to actually be online. But there is 6 air online, and nobody usually builds True Sight this early into the game. So a lot of dodging means there's going to be a lot more auto attacks coming on through from Thanatos that get on through. And Thanatos themselves also have True Sight onto their Little Fury. But of course, air units, they do have one problem, and that is that they are very squishy to that physical damage when they do actually get hit. So unfortunately here for Thanatos, they will end up going down. Big win coming out here from Zyphat. Now we have a battle of the two towards the bottom as of this moment here. Zyphat 66, Nariba 64. And Shock is unironically going to be picked up here for Nariba. One of the teams I know personally I would love to try, but I never actually get the opportunity to pull it off because Shock is very similar to Mud in nature, where you have, if you truly want to go into Shock, you have to spend a lot of credits very early, very quickly, just like you would with Mud. However, the payoff that you get for using it compared to Mud is absolutely, like, diabolically bad. It does not at all have the damage compared to Mud. But one thing that you can do is potentially Shockanite, where you can get Shock alongside Arcanite, which is what they're actually going to be trying to set up for. And even still, in this battle as it stands right now, Nariba has the level ahead, but it is still very close. But I think actually Nariba is going to be able to clean this one up in the end. The Atipo doing a great job tanking for the Squid, and the Ranger still has a bunch of shielding on top of it as well. So nicely done there from Nariba, making Shock, in at least a low stage, do some work in the early game. NPC rounds coming on through. We've got 2 Verminios getting added onto the battlefield. Bart's going to pick one up alongside Thanatos. A Jokul, a very quick Jokul coming out here for Nariba as well. I'm sure that's not going to make Thanatos very happy, because another way you could take this, of course, with that Tempest Lance being a bulwark weapon, there is always the potential of getting maybe Behemoth online. But of course, that would require either a fully evolved Seer or a Jotun. So with Nariba going after their own Jokul, that puts the pressure onto potentially like missing out on the Jotun. But then, okay, this is also the possibility I might have not have been making things up. There we go. So the Pangu did actually sneak in to Thanatos' team. So this can now end up, yep, sure as heck, this is now going to be 6 air Vanguard Frost. And now with Frost online, you get additional damage amp and a shield once you go 50% health, but you also lower attack speed. And with a lot of these team compositions as of late being very auto attack centric, maybe if you get that Frost onto a critical target, that could be crazy. And one thing I also didn't notice here as well is we actually got imprints. The composite chips are going to be in play. That Jokul is now a Vanguard, and it's diving on into Draknian's team and just absolutely shredding everything. The Stabin is going to be forced to proc that Phase Breaker, but the healing from the Archos does not come out in time to keep the rest of that backline alive. The poor little Fern will get absolutely shredded. Going to be all down to the Ace to somehow clutch this one up, but 1v3, I don't think that's going to happen. And Thanatos turning this into a Frost team, while also even adding a Rake onto this. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily a dedicated rogue team, but it's going after the rogues that make the biggest impact in the game. The only thing that the team doesn't have is the Mole having like any sort of little lure or something along those lines. I'm going to be very intrigued to see where they go from here, but I want to take a trip down towards the bottom where we do see no Cacho. Right around that 50 HP mark, starting to get a very beefy squad online. Level 7 currently with the Lura, nice Lura at that, level 60 and ready to rock. Meanwhile, Wolverine did end up going for rogues themselves, of course. They do have the Vinebound Cleaver. Bart pivoted away from the Vinebound Cleaver and opted actually to turn this into maybe some sort of fire build. We'll see where that goes from there. But off the start here for No Cacho, the one thing that definitely sucks is the fact that Riptorus is stuck. They cannot get themselves into the fight until just this moment, but now there is no front line to really save them. Ramp Fight going to get some big damage done, and this is going to be an absolute slobber knocker or poor No Cacho. Big damage coming on through, big win for Wolverine. And the Verdant Chip onto the Lura, turning that thing into an absolute beast. We'll go through in a second, whenever the next NPC round is, and see exactly what everybody is using. Now, it looks like Nariba happens to have an Inferno Chip. I mean, this worked really good in the first game. So they're set up to do the exact same thing again. No Cacho actually went for Bloom, which this takes time to ramp up. So that's actually a scary way to play, considering there are a lot of teams that focus on heavy burst damage or just heavy damage early in the round. I mean, if they can keep that Crunk alive, maybe that Fury and that Riptorus can go absolutely nuts, but it is a very tough task indeed. Curious to see how No Cacho will do here versus Nariba, who currently now has 6 Fire Inferno. Ramp Fight coming on through, going to immediately chop away at the Little Fury, taking it down nicely, and that Riptorus will be short to follow. The numbers game just says it all here. Nariba with a humongous win, going to knock No Cacho down to 18. Zyfet, how are you doing here? You're going up against Drac. And this is a very close one here, it looks like, as well. Furiox does have the Piercing Force Reactor, but there is still the highly augmented Fury in the background. Very similar to game number 1 here. Drac has not gotten the Furiox to actually come online just yet, but it does not matter. They have the augments for it, so they'll be able to clutch things up. Your Majesty has arrived. The Monarch coming on through here for Bart now as they're going up against Wolverine. Wolverine did pick up the Malura, so now this thing's going to be an absolute menace. Even more so than it already is. But 3 Vanguard, at least it's not going to be 4. But could Wolverine potentially be the player to knock Bart out of a win streak? I want to stick around with this one and take a look, because it's the first time we've really seen Monarch all day as well. Normally people are content with just stopping at 2 Arctaces, but nope, the Monarch going to be coming on through. Decent damage across the right side, but look at the crazy amount of damage coming out here from Wolverine. These rogues have just absolutely shredded. It's going to be all down to the Monarch to potentially get this done. But with look at all those verdant puddles as well. There's healing all over the place. Bart has finally met their match in the form of Wolverine. Zyfet and No Cacho battling it out here as well. It looks like No Cacho actually was able to crack the lost streak and now knocks Zyfet down to 7. Now that the NPC round is here, let's get a full confirmation on what those composite chips ended up being. So it was an Inferno chip here for Bart. We did see the Verdant chip onto the Malura here for Wolverine. Nariba, Inferno as well. How about here for Drac? They have Aegis once again onto the Fur Knight, it looks like. Thanatos did get the Jotun, and they have that Jotun with a Vanguard chip. That is kind of terrifying, I'm not going to lie. Then with No Cacho, they have the Bloom imprint onto the Crunk, and Zyfet, last but not least, going to also have Verdant, but onto the Crunk instead here. We're going to take a look and see what Zyfet ends up doing here, because this could be the tournament ender here for them if they cannot get through Nariba. But the biggest problem, or one of the bigger problems that Zyfet's going to have to deal with, is the fact that essentially everything on Nariba's team is going super effective against them. The Hyper will absolutely be in play. Wolverine just got a bunch of upgrades as well, with both the Slashin' and the Vermiliere coming into the game. So Wolverine spending everything in the bank, but they have the critical rogues to potentially run away with the rest of this game. So let's see. 6 Fire Inferno with fighters up against 7 Nature Verdant. I mean, this is a little bit scary for the Nature player. But maybe can the Furiox get enough support to just kind of burn it down themselves? We'll have to take a look, but you'll see all these yellow bars glowing on the red team. They've got additional attack speed, plus additional damage taken resisted, as well as additional damage amplification. And with that, they will absolutely burn a hole through Zyphet and take them out of here first in game number 3. GG Zyphet. And with Zyphet gone, of course, they were one of the players that were possibly in position to contend for Bart's win. Zyphet was second, but that will be the end of the road here for them this time by. Nocacho versus Drac now. Nocacho 1 HP in a dream. I mean, they did have Bloom. I see the Forest on the bench. Can they somehow utilize that potentially? They will bring it on in. It is a beautiful, essentially perfect Forest here. Got the phase breaker onto it because, of course, that Forest is always prone to just running ahead of the tanks and getting itself into trouble. It'll be a very tough battle to try and pull through. That ramp feed did not stay in this battle long, but it had enough time to get an Infernal Skyfall onto the ramp fight as well as the Forest. The Forest is going to go untargetable, but it's not even into the backline just yet. It gets shot down extremely quickly, and in a very similar scenario, Draknien will be able to torch down Nocacho this time by, and Nocacho will be out of here in 6th place. Thanatos could be short to follow here if things don't go their way as well, which is crazy to think that things aren't going their way when there's a damn Jotun right there in their face. And I kind of don't mind the switch up. I was just thinking to myself, is there a world where maybe going for some sort of behemoth play instead of 3 Vanguard would be more valuable? Or they're going to damn well try it. Thanatos, this mixture of behemoths now and rogues, with a little bit of Tempest added on here now that the Mammoth has arrived. Can that potentially be enough to get through the absolute crazy firepower here from the Reba? Right now it's looking pretty good that Jotun has essentially survived everything thrown at it. Down to his phase breaker though. Can it get onto the Forest? It will, but there's still just too much firepower. That will be the end of Thanatos. They will fall in 4th. And Bart is continuing to lead the charge rather nicely. They didn't actually get the win that time by, but one thing that they can take solace in knowing is that the person they lost to just got knocked out of the game. So now Bart versus Drac. 6 Fire, Nature, Inferno on both sides. The difference maker here is that Bart does also have Wildfire. There's even Phantom, of course, now online since the Monarch is here. And it's 5 Bulwarks compared to a mixture of Aegis and Templar coming on through here from Drac. This will be an interesting battle, but with both of these players relying heavily onto the Snake line, onto Furiox, onto Scoriox, they would absolutely love to potentially help get the killing blow, get some of those snakes back into play. Big damage from the ramp fight, but it does end up falling. The Furiox here for Draknien is still extremely safe. Meanwhile, on the side of Bart, it's being chewed away at very, very considerably. It does get the shot onto Drax Furiox, though, and that is, in fact, going to be the difference maker. The Furiox moved up just a bit ahead of the Archos, I do believe, and that will allow for Draknien to get knocked down to 18. Bart up to 2nd now as we have an NPC round, potentially our last NPC round. Let's see how it goes. Zyphet definitely had a little bit of a hard time in the early rounds, and GG Zyphet no matter what, regardless of the results. I hope you had a fantastic time nonetheless. And there was also a lot of fire, unfortunately, considering the heavy nature-based team. But I don't blame you, though. Essentially, there is always one team in game number 1 and then game number 2 where somebody picked water and essentially got close or did run away with the game. But as we're seeing right now, there is no dedicated water player anymore. Nocacho is the closest we had to it. And They are already out of here. So it's a bunch of fire and then rogue kind of coming on through. Let's go take a look at Dreknian versus Wolverine. Can Drax somehow tank their way through this onslaught of rogues? This is a terrifying squad coming out here from Wolverine 777. 7 Rogue, 3 Vanguard compared to the firepower of Inferno and Fire. With the Aegis, can they hold the line? That Archos immediately got taken down. So a big disruptor in terms of the root and healer is going to be gone. But that Furiox is doing some pretty considerable work until the Malura just 2-taps this thing like we're playing Gears of War with a shotgun. Absolutely brutal stuff coming out here from Wolverine. They will take Dreknian out of here in 4th place. GG's. In terms of our live battle, we now have Bart versus Wolverine and Nariba going up against the Ghost of Wolverine. We'll stick to the live match. Nobody should be getting taken down. It's not round 35, so we're not going to die at 50. Now, an additional composition being added into Wolverine is now Spore coming on through. Spore, of course, did get a buff in the latest patch that made it so that it's actually... You feel it now when it steals the Omega, or not the Omega power, but when it steals energy from you. Now, while the squad here is not necessarily a physical damage one coming, or super focused on physical damage, or not physical damage, Omega power, it can still be absolutely useful. We're going to see Monarch ends up leaving the poor Furiox behind. Bart looks like they're being absolutely crushed, but I mean, a good final push here is going to make it close, but Wolverine will be able to stop Bart. Nariba was not able to take care of the Ghost, so they are going to be down to 21, and now they could potentially be within kill shot now. Oh, in terms of the race for the Scoriox, between Nariba and Bart, Bart has won that race. Scoriox is here. There's the big guy right there. Nearly perfect. Level 60. And bonus points, of course, for the Hollow. Gotta love the shinies here in Illuvium. But for the battle at hand, Wolverine with the Rogues has been absolutely terrorizing everybody so far here in game number 3. But I do see that big old mammoth directly in the middle of that bunker that might be able to help keep the Furiox safe. Where's the first and Scissor Eyes coming on through? Doesn't even get the chance to do it. It's going to launch the Malura on through. And a good spot for AoE, but then look at that, the absolute perfect blender coming on through from the Malura. It took everything down, which means Nariba will be out of here in 3rd. So Wolverine versus Bart to finish off the RattyData tournament, and Bart is still managing to find upgrades. With the Blotto online, does that now give them Aegis by chance? It does not look like it, but the nice thing, of course, with the Blotto, it is a fantastic Illuvial at blinding other Illuvials. Which, considering that Wolverine is essentially full physical damage, is exactly what they could need. How long can they protect the Scoriox? Does have that Magma Pool coming on through as well, making it a little bit tankier and making it a little dangerous to go after in close spaces. The Gorilla and the Malura are going to jump on it really quickly, actually. Wow, they cleaned that thing up very beautifully. They turn now onto the Monarch. That is another fantastic Omega coming out here from the Malura. And while all of this was happening, Slashin was still just sitting there with essentially a quarter HP, but could not go down. So Wolverine looking to potentially make a big shoot up the rankings if things go their way. They currently are 6th in the tournament. A win here would definitely shoot them up many, many places. And Bart might have 13 health left, but of course they are probably in a good spot no matter what here. One more potentially final push here. They can get the kill shot onto Bart. It'll be very, very close to see. Both players picking up the Elk line as well. We've not seen an Adorius show up at all here today. That would definitely be the icing on the cake. Bart going to find the Seer, actually. So just even more brutal tankiness coming on through here for Bart. They might not necessarily just win by pure damage, even though this is a fire-based team. But even still, it is a very tanky team at that. So, Wolverine, I mean, it's been looking good so far, but there is still plenty of potential for Bart to make a comeback here. And look at how tight this bunker is. I do not see a world where Malura could somehow sneak in there. We're going to try and get a better angle of the initial jump. And yeah, it pretty much blocks off everything. Is the Malura charm actually in range of the Scoriox? It is actually. So the Wobble combo actually came in beautifully alongside the stun from the Goliath. That was a ton of damage. Huge explosions coming out here from Wolverine. An absolute incredible Wombo combo to finish the job. And with that, Wolverine will take our final game here in the RattyData monthly tournament. Incredible finisher for Wolverine. Able to take rogues by themselves, find all of the rogues all of the rogues that mattered, essentially, while also not forgetting about the front line. There's a lot of players that will get Gnarl or get Twine and think that's enough tankiness, I'm fine. But no, the addition of the Goliath, not just for the stun, but it got added into the Wombo combo. That was Vermiliere, the Roots from Gnarl, Ramp Fight, Malura, and Goliath damage all going in. That Scoriox just immediately popped, and I absolutely loved what I saw there from Wolverine. GG's. Bart going to be in second place here with that incredible fire-based team. Nariba also going to be here in third, rounding up the podium. Another fantastic finish. Draknian, super consistent, always in the... It's a very consistent day all around. Going to be fourth this time by with another fire-based squad. Thanatos, I love the idea going for the Frost Vanguard or the Frost or the Tempest Behemoth, but still going to fall in fifth. Nokecho with the Toxic style with lots of firepower going to round up in sixth. Then Zyphet, unfortunately in a world of fire, the grass ends up getting burned, and they didn't necessarily have the luck necessary to get across that time. Now we can take a look at the final results here. So again, the top 3 players in the tournament will be getting some prizes. It may not be the exact ones that we see here in this image, but a couple of Illuvitars, a couple very fighting fit Illuvials, all over 90 TPI. So getting up into third is where the prizes sit. So where do our players lie? I didn't want to spoil it too soon, but yeah, Bart getting that high up, that was absolutely exactly what they needed. Congratulations, Bart from Atlas, on their second RattyData tournament win in a row. But also, to round up our podium, Nariba with an incredible performance here today, going to get second. And then Wolverine clutching it out there in that final game was enough to win via tiebreaker. So Draknian will be just on the outside looking in of the podium in fourth place. Thanatos, the Valiant Effort, up down into fifth. Zyphet to sixth. Hector from Mad Dog's going to be seventh. And then Nokecho will round us up in eighth. So congratulations to all the players once again. And if you want to get involved again in this RattyData tournament series, there's weekly sit and goes that happen throughout basically every single week. You just need a ticket to enter off of RattyData's website, or off the RattyData website. So make sure you take a look there if you do want to get involved into the weekly, into the monthly, and potentially I'll be seeing you here in the final later on in August. Now, of course, for me personally, I'm going to be still doing a bunch of streaming for Illuvium over the next couple of days. Probably actually going to take Monday off to allow myself to actually get a little bit of a breather here on my voice. But then Tuesday all the way up to Friday, we're going to do 4 days worth of Illuvium. Going to be in the arena on Tuesday. We'll have all the news on Wednesday. Maybe we'll have to see. If all of a sudden there's an announcement of something and we can take a look at it for Thursday, I'd love to do that as well, but there's no guarantees. No matter what, we'll at least be doing something Illuvium. And then, of course, Friday is Illuvium Arena House League that I'm going to be hosting, a free-to-enter event where the prizes are not necessarily in regards to cash, but more so in regards to building your collection for newcomers that are maybe a little bit newer to Illuvium as a whole. Big thank you to everybody for tuning in as well. If you happen to be a first timer here, it'd mean the world to me if you could drop a subscription here onto the channel as well. Like I was saying, I do Illuvium 4 to 5 times a week now in terms of casting, or weeks like this where there was 6 of it. But it was an absolute blast. Also, big thank you to Ratty, Bondaddy Ratty, for asking me to cast this thing. This was an absolute blast, just like last time. But we'll have to see going into August. Can somebody potentially knock Bart out of here? Because they are on an absolute tear, doing a fantastic job, and do not want to take anything away from them. But somebody, I'm sure, wants to try and dethrone them sometime in the near future. But I will be closing things out here for today. One more time, big thank you to everyone for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun, as always. And because of everybody in the chat tuning in and all of your support, this makes this just an absolute blast. Well, it's been a fantastic week. But I gotta crash now. I will see you all on Tuesday for the next stream.
Woke up tired, didn't sleep all night. Mine's still running like a traffic light. Red for stop and green for go. I'm stuck somewhere in between them both. Brushed my teeth and checked my phone. Everyone looks like they've already grown. Smiling faces, perfect lives. I'm here asking, what am I doing with mine? I don't have a plan, I just have today. Trying not to throw the little good away. Heart's still heavy, but I'm still here. Taking one small step through the fear. I'm tired, but I'm not giving up. I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. One small step is enough today. I'm not fine, but I'm on my way. I'm tired, but I'm not giving up. I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. One small step is enough today. I'm not fine, but I'm on my